Boom. All right. So no, we were just sharing a little bit about where we were in the book. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. So I don't know if anybody first wants to share about anything from because I know some people had just like a couple pages to finish up from last time. If they wanted to share anything from the last book, or if we just want to dive into the new book.
Yeah, let's dive into the new book.
Sounds like a plan. So who wants to kick us off? All right then.
How about you, Justin?
I was just gonna say, all right then. Well, I think I'll jump in there. So, this is an interesting book for me because it took me a minute to get used to it, the way that it's formatted and the way that they're kind of like, youth versus the
Philosopher.
philosopher. And so I'm still getting used to the form of reading. And I also went to an ebook instead. So that was my last week's new dive. So getting used to reading it instead of holding it. With my ADD kicks in every once in a while, so it's been fun to try to kind of put that in perspective as I'm kind of going through it. But I'm finding it interesting in seeing where they're going to go with this. So far I like the way that the chapters are all basically how they're talking about. I guess I'm a little bit confused as to where it's going at the moment, right? In terms of what they're talking about and how they're positioning it. Because I don't know that I necessarily agree with what the philosopher is saying. I don't necessarily agree with what the young guy is kind of debating. So I'm kind of going torn in the middle there. I didn't know that there was an Alden or Adlin or however you pronounce his name, in terms of there being another philosophy out there, and so an Adler. And so I'm finding it interesting to learn a little bit more in that regard. And I think that from what I've read so far, that I'm curious as to how they're going to tie it all together and how they're going to make this work because I don't know that if you have the ability to then like I don't know if you can. I'm just kind of feel like I'm all over the place with this one because I feel like can your past really predict your future? And if that's the case, then the way that they kind of go about kind of putting the questions and answers behind that, it makes sense that if that really was true, then there's a lot more things that would negatively play out or could negatively play out in the future. And then you're kind of putting everybody in the same basket, and painting them all in the same brush. Or is it that you're basically creating these worlds or these different uh, situations that happen because that's your goal? So I'm kind of, I'm just learning, I guess, kind of reading where they're going to go with this and see what it looks like because I don't necessarily believe that I'm creating certain circumstances to make it because I have a certain goal in mind. But then I think that the way that they position it that way, if that's the case, then most of us are going about it the wrong way because we could be creating our complete own destiny going forward and writing our whole future. But a lot of people then they're saying get caught up in the whole, this is what my past was, and this is where then the future is going to go. So you're already using that as a predicator for what the future is going to look like. So I'm interested. I'm hooked for sure. And so I'm excited to see where this goes and kind of see where I align. It's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, I'm gonna go next. That's awesome, Justin. Um, First of all, I love the way this book is being written. I'm just gonna say that the first two books, I was like struggling, like, oh my, I am not very smart for this group, but that doesn't matter. Don't down yourself, Shannon. Anyways, this the way it's written, I can, in my mind, I got two voices going, like, and I love it. Okay, so I like that. First of all, the youth in this book, like he wants to learn, but he doesn't want to learn. And I find that very true about youth today. They say they're open, but in his mind, he already has a narrative, and he's going to fight with this guy and not hear the narrative because he already has a projected outcome of what he wants to hear. So I want to see where that goes too, and I think that's really cool how the philosopher is handling it with calmness and not fighting him on anything, but just here, listen to this different point of view. And then the title, what was it? It was Trauma Does Not Exist. Well, let me tell you something. As soon as I seen that title, I was like, well, here we go, boys. Yes, that is like the number one thing out there right now. Oh, my trauma is like, okay, so this is a trigger for me because I have a situation in my life where I have a couple children. I have a lot of children, thank goodness. But I have a couple children who are now like, oh, you really traumatize us. I'm like, okay, you don't even know what trauma is. But trying to like work with them, I was like, when I saw that title, I'm like, well, I'm just going to write that down on the family group chat and see where that goes. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But I love that they said that you can put meaning to a trauma and that will affect your future. That is huge. And you can put two people in the same trauma situation and they can come out of it totally different from their personality, the meaning they put to that trauma, et cetera, et cetera. So I love that when people blame their trauma for who they are now, are not really doing the work it needs to heal from it or get that meaning taken away. I know there's a lot to unpack there. I get that. Like, don't come at me, okay? I'm brand new here. But it's like, yeah. So I do love that. And where he says the past doesn't matter. Like, I'm old enough now, and I don't know who else is my age on here, a few of you, but if I look at my past and be like, well, I'm like this because of my past. No, that it really the past doesn't matter. If you actually give grace and thankfulness for the good things, you can move on from the bad things. And I think I'm loving this philosopher. And guys, I like this book. And let me see what else I wrote. Da, 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 da. No, that's good enough for my portion because there's a lot of us today. All right, next person.
Shannon,
What?
I love your personality and your energy. I think it's great. And no one's gonna ever attack you or anybody in this, for that matter, because I think the unique thing about this is everyone's perspective, right? Because the way you see something or the way I see something, I guess, not to change someone's perspective, but I think it's you know just to talk about the philosopher, right? Philosophy is about perspective. It's about how you view things and how you see things. And if you have ever read philosophy books, they're always normally on the positive side of things, that everything happens and it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And so that's what I love about this book. And I'm not going to go, but what I do love about it is if you're listening to it, it's almost like listening to a podcast. Although I see it as this like smart ass teenager like trying to prove everybody wrong. That's kind of how I visualize this person. Like his main objective is to prove this philosopher wrong, and it's like that's the opposite of what you should ever do with a philosopher because you're going to gain no knowledge, right? So, but I love how you share, Shannon. So don't ever be afraid to be you and share just like you because I think it's a great dynamic in our group.
Well, you obviously made it safe and sound back there to Florida.
I did after a very long trip.
More time to
When I
grab
got
lunch
here, I
and
told my
find
wife I was like I
out.
had 56 hours of direct light, and then my wife just said she said, "But how many hours do you think Crystal and Chris have had? How many hours of light do you think they've had?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess I didn't. I'm really just being self-centered and thinking about me." She's like, "They don't see light. They don't see dark for like 2 months, right? Isn't that what you said? And you're
Pretty
complaining
much.
about 56 hours."
Pretty much. Well, I do want to say, like, logging on here, this is awesome to see 14 people on book club again. It's been a long time since this, so kudos to you and keep growing it this way. And welcome Mary from the event this weekend. That's awesome. And so my takeaways on this book, I think this is going to end one of two ways. I'm either going to think this book is amazing or it absolutely sucked. Like the way it's leading in, this is just kind of like it's got so much potential to go. Like I don't think it's going to be in the middle. I don't think this is going to be one, but like it's a very intriguing start. And I'm glad it's actually kind of in this back and forth context because if I was trying to read about Alderian psychology or whatever that like just
Mhm.
reading about it, I'd be totally lost. Like the way that this author has put this is in a unique way that I can actually like, all right, I can kind of understand where he's getting at it. And there was a couple of the key takeaways here that where it's just like it was it just was kind of like a lot of white noise for me at first. It was hard for me to grasp a few things, but there were a few things that really jumped out. Like when he's talking about, as you I heard mention Shannon, like yeah, pain in the past doesn't matter. And it's
Mhm.
like, okay, what do you mean? Like there's been bad stuff that's happened, but it's like, how are we responding to it now? And it's just, it really does make you think. And the title of the book made more sense as I started getting into it. The courage to be disliked. And it's not so much about you know, hold on, where was I going to put it? Because it was, hold on. I'm losing my train of thought on this one here. But okay, no, looping back to, I'm taking a quick detour on this one. That inferiority complex and superiority complex. both of them a lot more similar than what they actually you're looking at it from. Because one, is somebody's thinking they're superior on something, I'm way better at this. Well, they're really overcompensating, and somebody who's feeling inferior. It reminded me a lot of the gap and the gain when it was talking about the reason that somebody's feeling inferior is because they're only looking ahead to what they don't have versus looking back to what they truly do. And taking that moment, it's that was something that jumped out to me. It was like, and going using that analogy back towards the beginning of the book when he was talking about water itself and that well that it's always I cracked up when he said 18 degrees because like that's frozen. Oh yeah, no, he's probably talking about Celsius. He's talking about 60 degrees and do the conversion here. Got it. And how it really just depends on where you're at on how you're going to perceive something because we're all going to look at something slightly different through our own prism. We've talked about that in other books. But just where are just knowing that everything is it's got its I don't know, like this whole book has got me frazzled. Like I can't even put thoughts together on this one here. Like I said, it's goofy and ridiculous. But this is what I'm saying. I think this is going to either be something or when it comes out of it, because at the very beginning of the book, when he mentioned this book has the potential to change your life, he immediately put it on this. All right, this is better be phenomenal. And I'm holding it to that standard. And I think it can. But right now I'm so lost. And I can't wait to see where this journey goes over these next couple weeks. But anyways, that's where I'm at with it. Like, hopefully you got something. I might be getting something. We'll find out here in a couple weeks what my true takeaway is out of this.
I'll jump in. So I've been listening to this as I've been driving, so I don't have like notes written down or constructive anything. So I'm going to probably be jumping around as well. I don't know that I like the way the Audible does it as a podcast. It seems a little goofy to me just because it seems like it is coming from a very immature adolescent and this like mentor figure. But I have a feeling it's going to work towards coming together and, like this epiphany for this young adult. And then I'll probably like it by the end. But I do think it really puts the philosophies and theories into layman's terms, which I do really like because, like Chris said, I think if I was just reading this without any of that, I would be completely lost. But I did find myself multiple times while driving almost like, oh my gosh, hallelujah. I'm not the only one who feels or thinks this way about some of the concepts of it's a choice. It's a choice to choose happiness. It's not a symptom of trauma that happened years ago. It's a choice. And that you have to, it's, and I don't know where in the book he said it, but there was a point where he was talking about, the trauma we experience or what we're feeling at the moment, such as like depression, all of these symptoms are not the problem. I'm trying to, and maybe I just need to go back and reread it so I can really verbalize it. But there were so many points where he just kept saying, it's a choice to feel this way. It's a choice to
Hold up in your room, whatever it was.
Correct. And that's not because you have anxiety. It's a choice. It's not because of a trauma experience because your parents were mean to you. It is a current choice. And I've always believed in that, especially when I've had people around me who are like, might tell me I'm going through this and man, it's just so debilitating. I can't do this, or this. And in my head, all I think, not because I don't have compassion, but I do think it's also a choice. And I'm sure I've been there at different times in my life where I'm like, I can't get out of bed today because of X, Y, or Z. Well, it's still a choice. And yeah, I think that he is going to ultimately, it's all going to come together with that courage to be disliked, but that courage to choose happiness, that courage to choose action, that courage to move forward through the the hardships and the challenges to ultimately achieve that ideal life that you want. You know, that young kid is talking about how, well, I compare myself to others, and so I'm not happy. Again, that is a choice. And I think he'll give us the tools on how to ultimately maybe effectively make those choices so that way we can get through those feelings. But it doesn't stop there. A lot of people think because of their trauma or their pain or their past experiences, they're stuck and they don't know how to work through it. So I am curious how, you know, like what tools or path he's going to give us to work through those things. But as of right now, like I completely agree with the philosophies. I just don't have constructive notes right now.
Yeah. No, it's wild.
I like it.
I'll jump in. Mary indulged me here. We had started on the other link and we were kind of running our own show, wondering where everybody was. So apologies. Um, you know, uh, it ran into my liberal arts degree, and then I had to sit and think about it and say, get out of the way. Um, you're basically going to a psychology class here, and you're not learning about Freud, you're not learning about Maslow, you're learning about Adler. And not being a psychology major, it was new to me. I agree from a psychological standpoint um, that we make choices and we are allowed to make choices. We are allowed to not make choices. That's part of it. The aspect about being that life is simple, and or he starts with the premise, the guru starts with the premise that life is simple, or the world is simple and life is simple, and the hard parts are all constructed by us. It's our construct. And so you can see how that argument is beginning to build. There's sort of this slight disequilibrium currently going on at the point where, especially in the beginning, where he went into the kitchen and made a pot of coffee because he knew it was going to be a long night and needed the energy just to sit there and keep his eyes open while the young student was peppering him with, you know, his questions, his trying to turn certain situations around, and then going on the offense with his worldview. I'm not quite sure at this point in time, and I don't want to get too heady about it. I'm just absorbing it, just like let it, kind of like watering the lawn summertime. You know, the grass is green and just water, and just let that water soak in. Don't overwater. Just make sure the flowers get around the edging, and just let the nutrients of the evolving story and allowing the Adler in psychology aspect, which is different than the Freudian piece, and Maslow and all that other stuff, um, based on how we react to life from the behavioral side. I'm still grinding the way in which he sets it up so that we essentially we think one way, and Adler, the psychologist, because this is the level, this is who designed this is who thought of this is the brilliance that created this whole of what the guru is talking about, is it's a different thought. And we do it every day. We read books and we try to understand, because the authors are essentially saying you have a choice in the way in which you live life and how you look at life, in its whether you're going to make it hard or you're going to look at it in a simple, and then be able through that regardless of the circumstances, the past, the present, and where you're heading in the future, there. So I just like you, Crystal, I lose gas and kind of lose altitude a little bit, um, in just trying to piece it together without getting overly in my head about it. But I mean, it's. I'm not going to put I like it, I don't like it. I'm finding it very interesting because it's all going in line, very much so, about working on your mindset. And that's the piece that I'm holding on to, that it's about the mindset and how and behaviorally we have, me particular, I've looked at things, and it's time to take a look. I mean, this morning in the gym, I'm sitting there, doing my thing, and I'm sitting there going, you've got to think differently. In between sets, you're taking your breaths, you're doing your thing. And I'm just saying, behave, because I was actually thinking about the book at the moment. You've got to think differently. And the mindset has got to, it has to permeate similar to the watering of the lawn. So without further ado, I'm going to jump off and hand the mic over. But it's, you know, I have no thumbs up or no thumbs down. It's just level, and I'm just letting it water me.
Glad you're tending to the flowers. Who else was to share?
I'll share quickly.
Go for it.
I feel like the time-space continuum has merged. I don't know what the heck happened this week. So were we going over the influential mind a little bit this week? Were we supposed to? Not at all?
We finished it last week.
See, I don't know where the heck I am. So I'm still over there. I must have been in the salon or something. I don't know. It was a busy week. It was a busy week. So the only thing I wanted to I haven't actually started the other book, but I just wanted to just add to Shannon's comment about what did you say? The past, pain of the past doesn't matter. Is that part of this book? I just kind of I need to read that chapter because I kind of don't agree. Whatever. Because you got to work on your trauma, right? But like, my thing is because I'm an identical twin, and I do a lot of the inner work stuff, and she has it, so she's kind of quick to pill kind of thing. So anyway, we're very different. But yeah, I got to read the book. I apologize.
I'll just share a couple of things because I have
Arlene, you
not.
sound like the youth. You'll understand next week.
So I was telling Justin that I've had a crazy month and I haven't been here because usually Wednesdays are my day off, administrative day, and I can log in, and it hasn't been that way. So I haven't even started the book. But like we've always say, for whatever, everything happens for a reason. You guys were talking about trauma and whatever, and Monica was at my house this weekend, and she actually recommended a different book. That one I did start. That's called What Happened to You. Not like I'm recommending another book, but that book is about trauma and about like how you choose to react to trauma, and how some people choose to just freeze and it really freezes them. It's horrible. And other people choose to actually act and, react and get better. And so whenever you guys were talking about this, and I just bought the book, so I'm going to start this one really soon. But I definitely think that um it's crazy that again, that every time that we read a book, it's like something, there's a reason why you guys are reading it, and whatever's happening in your life. And when I was reading this book with Monica, so anyway, um, I'll have more to say next week, but I do definitely agree with what Shannon, that was her name, yeah, was talking about the whole kind of trauma thing. So whoever actually read it can talk now. Sorry, I will come prepared next time.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll chime in a little bit. So I'm just so grateful to be here. I met Jay last weekend at an event, and when I saw that this was a thing, I thought this is what I need because I do not read enough. Everything's, scroll hole, and so I don't have the book yet in my hands. Goes Alaska. It's going to be in my mailbox today. So I got the audiobook and I did also do the Kindle just to kind of get started. Um, so what I've been finding with this a little bit is I've been finding myself getting angry at the kid because it's like, dude, you're so young. Well, you know nothing. But then I have to look back and go, oh, wait a minute. Mary at 18 or 20 or whatever thought the same way. And, being as you get a little older and wiser, you go, oh, you kind of get that wise wisdom of kind of like the guru and stuff. Um, but um, I've been trying to kind of figure out, it's like, well, the courage to be disliked, how is this going to come together? Because it's not, it's more about the whole psychology and how you think, but where is the part he's not talking anything about not being liked? But is this going to connect with disliking yourself and the courage to to be that way and to move through it? So I too, like Chris, am kind of trying to keep an open mind that I am going to eventually see something come together where it's going to be that, oh, that a new aha moment, if you will. So between listening to it and then having it in print, being a Gen Xer, I still like stuff in print, to actually read it and not just hear it. So super excited for that.
Welcome to the book club.
So hey, Mary, yeah, welcome. And I will tell you, I'll give you a little hack, and for anybody that hasn't heard this before. So I do read on a Kindle. I get the hard book just because I write the date when I read it for my kids in the future, so they have my library and know what I've read and what I educated myself with. But I read on a Kindle, and I link the Audible up with the Kindle, and it actually highlights all the words as you're going along. But the reason I do that is because I can put it on two times, and so I can get through the book a lot faster, but I can also stop by highlighting it. And so for book club, all my notes, like Chris and Crystal, I think write their notes down. I highlight everything that's an impact for me, and then I could discuss it. But also at the end of the book, I can go back in and read all my notes, and that's kind of my recap of the things that impacted me in the book. Instead of trying to remember everything, I just do one last read of all my notes. So you can kind of still read and listen, but we read a book in the book club called Limitless by Jim Quick. And he talked about speed reading and being able to read more and being able to digest more. And part of that is basically not moving your lips. But also, what the hack that I found by accident was one time I downloaded the Audible and within my Kindle said, "Do you want to download the Audible and connect it?" And then it started highlighting the words. So visually, I'm seeing everything that they're reading because it's highlighting it, but I'm also hearing it at the same time at two times. So now, like, this book, again, I haven't looked at the book, but I've been reading 30 pages a day because I got a little behind. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I read 30 pages, and it literally took 20 minutes for me to go through those 30 pages, and that's me highlighting and everything. So if you guys, want to think about that, if you have a Kindle, it's actually really, really helpful. And then you can highlight your notes and not have to write things down or stop. And then you can go back to those notes, and it's good for the book club as well.
How do you do that? Like the Kindle just asks you to do? I don't have a Kindle, but now I'm going to go buy
No,
one.
no, no, no. It's on my iPad. So iPad has a Kindle app,
Oh,
and
I
so
have
when I
that.
go into Amazon, yeah.
Okay.
So if you have a Kindle app, you go
Mm-hmm.
into Amazon, you buy the Kindle, it downloads it to your iPad
Uh-huh.
automatically. When you download the Audible, it automatically communicates with the Kindle, and you just have to download the Audible. It'll say download Audible, and when you click on it, so on my book.
So you buy both the Kindle and the Audible?
I buy both. Yeah, and
Wait,
I
so
buy
you
the
buy
book.
both and
So
then they're going to
I buy the book, the
connect.
Kindle, and the Audible. I have the book on my shelf with
Mm-hmm.
the date that I read it, and then what I read is this because it's a lot easier for me to travel with this and have it at my fingertips. So I'll show you. So if this is the notes section here, but you see this little play button? Can you see the play button right there? When
Mm-hmm.
I play that, so it's highlighting all the words. And if I want to highlight the sentence, I just put my finger on it and highlight it, and then it saves it as a note in my phone. So it's
See,
a great tool, and it also speeds up the process, and I can digest more. So I usually read three books, 30 pages, every single day, and that way I'm able to. I mean, I'm reading 90 pages a day, usually. What is that? 450 pages a week of books. I'm reading 2 to 3 books a week. with this. I couldn't do that if I was just reading a book with paper. You know, it would take me a lot longer to do that because you're going to read a lot slower. But I'm able to digest that information, highlight, have the notes, and then go back to it. And sometimes I use it for social media. If I'm going to do a post about something I learned, now I have content that I can go back to in my notes and say, hey, this is what I learned. Sorry to interrupt that, but
He's the hacker.
and also Mary, like that's because Crystal and Chris, I had no idea until I actually flew to Alaska, how long it actually takes for mail to get there because it took me a long time to get there. So, I mean, you guys order a book, it takes a week and a half. So, I was going to send books uh, by mail, and Justin told me one, how much it was going to cost, and two, how long it was going to, it wasn't even get there before me. And it was like a week before I left. So, I was like, okay, I'm just going to put them in my suitcase and take them because it's going to take too long. And they wanted like $400 to send like 4 books to Alaska. So it was insane.
Well, we could have went regular mail. It would have taken 2 months, is what they said.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that ridiculousness up here. It's like just throw it in a USPS flat rate. It's not that hard. But
Yeah.
you know, hey,
Right.
that's just why are we solving problems for others? I don't know.
Right.
But speaking of which, on a quick sidebar note, is the next book discussed? So yes, we can have it ordered, and we will be ready when this one's done in a couple weeks.
I believe you have it in there. I
All right,
think
perfect.
we'll head into the list. I'll pull it up before the end of before the end of the group meeting today.
All right.
If not, we'll decide on that
Yep.
today, Chris. Anybody else? Rhonda, go ahead.
Yes, hey y'all, I'll go next. Well, Jay, it would be interesting to see how much it would cost, yeah, to mail yourself up there to Alaska. That's for sure. I'm really enjoying this book. I'm relating with a lot of things, and I've got it on my Kindle. I'm reading it. I highlight things that I find interesting and points that I want to look back on. Then the only problem I have is like right now I'm furiously writing my notes before I speak here today. So that's the only thing I haven't quite figured out how it's going to work. But some of the things for me to share that I picked up, it talks about causes, not your past causes needing to relate to what's happening now, but working on your present goals. So looking back on your past and some of the things that have happened and using those as a predictor for the future, that's very Freudian thinking. Whereas here, we're looking at what I'm just calling better thinking, which is this Alderian types of theory. The self being determined by not an experience, but by the meaning that we give it. And isn't that so true? I mean, you can think about things that happen to people, and why do some people go through things that are adverse or not so nice, but yet their attitude, the way they view it is positive, or it's just so uplifting. Whereas others, they wallow and they fall down, and they let that kind of thing just guide their life, and they fall. So that's something that I've really taken to heart, to think about how I, based on my experiences, how I interpret them. There was a situation where it was described where someone, the waiter spilled coffee at someone, and the person goes off and is just starting to like yell at the top of their lungs. And as you're reading through it, what was the goal? The goal was to shout. And really what shouting was all about was to make the waiter submit to saying they were wrong, they did bad. And, you know, we've all raised our voices, yelled, shouted at some time. And just to think, yeah, like what is our purpose? What is our goal? And it's to be heard. But yeah, what are we actually wanting to get out of that? So I thought that was a really good example. And then the other one was there was a mother and a daughter that were fighting, and that they were yelling at each other. And then all of a sudden the phone rings, and the mother's like, "Oh, hello. Yes, I'm fine." And her demeanor completely changes with the person on the phone. She's lovely, she's calm. And then as soon as she puts the phone down, she's back to yelling at her daughter. So it kind of goes, it's not that our emotions can take over so much to the point that we can't control them. She was able to control her emotions with, you know, the click of a phone, basically. So just to be able to understand that we actually have control, even in the middle of this anger, this emotion, she was actually able to change it. And I think about situations like that as well, where yeah, we really do have the ability to be able to control those emotions and not to tell ourselves that we can't. That's once again all of the messaging that we tell ourselves to me was a theme that I kept getting in the book. Instead, if we're not able to really feel happiness, then it's a sign that things aren't right just as they are right now. So people can change at any time, but people make the decision not to. And I'm like, oh my God, like that is so powerful. We may not consciously make that decision, but what an impact, like what a difference it could have if I was able to make more decisions just to whether it's be happy or view something. The philosopher talked about being really short, and I think he's like about 5'1", so he's quite short. And if he compared himself to the average, the norm, the regular in this society, then yes, objectively he would be considered short. But he talked about how he made it work for him, the fact that people found him to be disarming. They were able to talk to him. Like he wasn't some towering figure. So he was able to mold himself into something that was using what could be considered a shortcoming into something that worked for him. And also his view of things had to change. That was very important. He had to see it not as a hindrance or being lesser than, but it was something very positive. And I'm like, once again, just keeping in mind how can I frame situations like this? And there was another thing that talks about familiarity. And sometimes, we don't make choices because we're afraid. We don't have the courage. And I could put a lot of things out there as far as, things that have held me back or are holding me back to taking action because we don't have the courage to make a change because we don't know what's on the other side. And I can relate to being stuck in a position that feels comfortable. And even though I say I want change, it's still the familiar that keeps dragging me back. So it doesn't matter. It says no matter what happens up till this point, it has no bearing on the tomorrow, no bearing on the future. So I'm really enjoying this book. I can relate to it in a lot of ways. There's a part where they get into inferiority complex, superiority complex, and this is not this, and that got a little bit wordy for me. But when I was able to just kind of focus on the messages, I'm finding that I'm really enjoying this. And like to me, the biggest message is that we have the power within ourselves to look at the world how we choose, and just all the things that are really within our power to look at life and how we interpret them, and the objective versus the subjective. So, meaning, of course, there's the things that are fact, but then there's the things that are based on opinion, experience, and really interpretation. So, I'm having a good time with this book.
I just gotta say, Rhonda,
Awesome.
that was probably the best summary of what this book is so far. You put into all the things that I wanted to, and again, it's why we've said the book club's awesome. You remind me of so many stories that I already forgot from that book there. So thank you. That was perfect.
Okay, love it. Thank you.
Anybody else? And Elizabeth, we love accents. I married my wife because of her accent. I mean, also because she was beautiful, but her accent had a lot to do with it. Um, so you don't ever be shy. We are all family here, and no one judges. This is a no judgment zone. So I will go real quick. So you know, I think I've studied a lot of philosophy, and what always fascinates me when I read about philosophy is how long ago these philosophers lived and how relevant it is today within humanity, right? Like, not a lot has changed in the way that we think, in the way that we act, the way that we create. It's all, I mean, we've been the same since we were created a long time ago. And so like the philosophy still pertains to today when you read a lot of philosophy, Greek and the Italian philosophers, like all the philosophers. I mean, it fascinates me. And so, when he was talking about pain, I think pain is there to teach you, right? I always tell people this. There's always two options in life. You can either go negative or you can go positive. And you have a choice in that moment to kind of see that pain for what it is. And when you have that pain and you're going through it and you're growing through that pain, sometimes it's hard. And I know this because my brother just recently went through a very um, big heartbreak of a girl that he really, really liked. Someone he never liked. I've never seen him like anybody this much. I've never seen him in this much pain. And um, and just when he's as he's going through this, I'm like, listen, this is to teach you something. There's something you need to change inside of you. Like you keep pointing a finger at the other person, but really what you should be doing is looking in the mirror and really figuring out what did you contribute to this relationship or what made this relationship go in the direction that it went in versus what she did, because you stayed with her. So you chose to be with her and you're blaming her for the relationship breaking up. So I was like, what you need to do is learn about yourself through this relationship. And I know it's really hard right now because you're in this state of depression and heartbreak, and but what did you learn? And so I was like, you need to read. Like, read about this, read about relationships, read about yourself, read about self-development. And his first answer to me was, I don't read. And I was like, well, that's your narrative, that you keep telling yourself over and over and over again. He's like, I just watch videos. And I was like, that's good, but it's a very limited reach. Like, there's a lot of people out there that you can learn from in relationships if you just read. And I was like, there's different ways to read, like I just talked to you guys about. But his narrative is that. And I feel like this book would be good for him, right? Because he is the youth, because he's not very educated, and not in a negative way. He's just not. Like, he's never read, he's never like really worked on himself. Um, and then, I feel like, what you said, Dr. Catherine, and I think it was Shannon, like all the books that we read this book club, and the biggest challenge I think of this book club is sticking with it, right? Not making an excuse not to show up, like, and that's the reason this whole thing was created. And you definitely have two solid people here with Chris, well, three, and me, because we show up, and Chris is not going to ever let this die. We've been down to three people in a book club. We've been, down to just him and I in a book club, and now we're growing this, and people are going to come and go. I know that. I don't get attached. I don't have any expectations, but I just feel like this impacts people. But I feel like whatever we read, books always meet you exactly where you are. You don't try to meet the book where, you want to be. It's going to meet you exactly where you are. And so that's what's so interesting about this conversation is, if you had trauma or you're dealing with trauma or you've squelched trauma, like your opinion is going to be completely different. But if you're open to listening, that's what books can do for you, right? And really, for me, the reason books are so good is because if you can just remove your ego during that conversation with that author, because really when you're reading a book, it's a conversation with you and the author, and that's it, right? There's no ego involved, because when he calls you out or this philosopher says this, you could rise up and be like, he ain't talking to me. Or you could be like, yeah, he's talking to me. Like, I need to deal with this. Right. And you don't have to share that with anybody. That's just between you and that author. And so I think that's the unique thing about this book is the book meets you where you are if you allow it to. And then you could go within and say, okay, what do I need to do to get past this trauma that happened to me? Like Arlene said, I worked on the trauma. My sister hasn't, right? I've worked on these things, but I see that she has it. Now, if she has it, how can you bring her along the way? Because I think in humanity, our whole purpose is to help other human beings, right? We see it when there's, September 11th, right? We see it when there's a hurricane. People bond together to try to help other humans, but we don't do it on a daily basis. When we see people down and out, like that's the moment daily that we need to do that, and that's the gift that we need to give to people like Arlene and her sister. But sometimes people just aren't open at that moment to hear it because they're defensive, like the youth or the student. I like to think of more than youth. It's a student. I think we all should be students of everything. And that's what's great about this book club is we all are a student of life, because none of us have it figured out. no matter, I don't think we'll ever have it figured out. Even when we die, we're gonna still, there's a lot of things that we don't get and we don't understand. And like I told my brother, he's dating this girl, and I was like, you've known her for 6 months. I know you're crazy about her, but you have no idea what her life was before, what trauma she had, what she's gone through, how she thinks. Maybe you triggered something in her that she was just like, you know what? I'm 60 years old. I am not dealing with this shit ever again. I dealt with it with my last two husbands. I'm not doing it. And you might have just triggered her, but you don't know because you don't know her. So I feel like that's what this book is kind of making us go through. And like, I remember when I was young, when they talked about the coffee story, I definitely had a moment like that in my life before, that I wasn't proud of, that I was like pissed about, and I felt like I was. And then afterwards, I'm like, man, I was kind of an a-hole. Maybe I shouldn't have raised my voice so loud, right? So like, those moments when you're going through the book, it's like when someone's in traffic and they cut you off, how are you going to act next time? Right? Because you're only affecting yourself. Like I know, like the other day I was going to play golf and this lady was like, "Wah, wah," like honking at me because I was literally 2 seconds at the light before I took off. And she's going by me and screaming at me and yelling at me. And I'm just like, wow, life must be rough for you right now to like react that way. And it literally, I mean, if it was 2 seconds, I'd be surprised. But I just, to see humans do that when we should be doing the opposite, like just be able, like maybe a tap, be like, oh, no big deal, like. So I think that's what this book is good for. But again, I think it's going to be a deep enough book. And what my translation when I read this book, as I'm reading this book, and I could be completely wrong, the courage to be disliked. I think where it's going, and this is my opinion, we'll see at the end, but I think the courage to be disliked is basically the courage to go against the masses. And I think the masses, have a certain belief system and live in this space of, not peace, not happiness, not love. And, when you have that and other people don't, they might not like you. And it's okay if people don't like you as long as you're being who your true self is. And I think that's what's important. If you're being your true self, but you're being kind, you're being generous, and you're helping people, then and somebody doesn't like you, then that's just probably someone like the student that just wants to prove you wrong and doesn't want to, hear what life really is. So that's my I think what's going to happen. When I read this book and I started reading, I was like, I think the courage to be disliked is everyone wants to be liked at all costs, even if it means I'm going to hang out with the wrong crowd or I'm going to do things that other people are doing that I know are wrong, but I'm going to go against that. I'm going to do the right thing always. So I love the book so far. I just like that it's written differently, and I like that there's actually a conversation being had. I think the student, obviously, the author is being a little bit melodramatic on how the student is acting. I feel like the student or the youth could be more inquisitive versus combative in the conversation because I feel like he's a little bit combative. I think it would be a better read, just my opinion on the book. Um, because but I think the philosopher is getting his point across. So I love it. And I love seeing this book club grow, you guys. I love seeing people grow and being a part of this. So thank you for everyone that came on. And Mary, thank you for joining us. And Elizabeth and Cindy, I haven't seen, and Centera, I think are new too. So thank you guys for being a part of this. Don't give up. It's 15 pages a day. You can do it. Um, yeah, I would just highly suggest try to read those 15 pages a day, get in the habit of reading daily because it will definitely change the way that you think on a daily basis. It'll change your day, it'll change your life.
Awesome. Well, I put in the chat also the next list of books, and then I'll put that in our Facebook group for us to take a poll on it, and so we can vote in the next three. I'll put that up by later today. And I put the link for our Facebook page just in case somebody doesn't have it. It's also in the chat.
Awesome, guys. It's so great to see you guys. The sun's still up in Alaska.
Have a great day because it's a choice.
It is a choice. It is a choice, you guys. Love you guys. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Y'all.